Welcome to Networking Unleashed Building Profitable Connections, the show where conversations don't just create contacts, they create capital. I'm your host, Michael Forman. Most founders network hoping to meet the right investor. They attend events, shake hands, send follow ups, and nothing happens. Not because investors aren't out there, but because credibility isn't built in the moment. It's built long before the conversation ever starts. My guest today helps founders shift from being just another entrepreneur to becoming an investor ready operator. We're talking about how positioning yourself so capital starts leaning toward you, why most founders struggle to raise money, even when strong ideas, how structured systems instantly change how serious investors see you. So, if you want networking to produce real deal flow instead of empty promises, this episode is for you. So I would like to introduce Tyrus to my podcast. Welcome, Tyrus. And I would really like for you to give us like the cliff notes of how you got where you are today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Michael. First and foremost, I appreciate you trusting me with your audience. I know that audiences are tough to build and even harder to maintain. So thank you for having me. I will give you, you call it the Cliff Notes version. I call it the Campbell soup, the instant version, the microwave version of my background.
Sure.
I did what most do. I grew up, I would say not a I'm dirt poor life, but we didn't have much life. And I noticed at an early age that all of my family members worked very hard. I'm talking 12, 15-hour days in factories and wood yards. And we're from South Alabama, so there's not a lot of opportunity. And I noticed that even though they work hard, we didn't have much. And at a very early age, I decided that I was going to not do that. I told my mom, and she tells the story all the time. He came to me one day and said he wasn't going to work hard like us. So I did the traditional thing that everybody does, did very well in school. My great grandfather used to tell me every day as we passed by his house, going to the bus stop, learn all you can because you're going to need it. I took that to heart. He was born in 1919. He didn't learn how to read until he joined the army. And I listened to the stories. And so I did well in school, went to college on a full scholarship and lost it my second year in pledging and just doing all the other stuff, not doing what I'm supposed to do. And from there, I went to work hard, working two jobs. I was working an HVAC job in the daytime, 8 hours a day, 8 to 9 hours. And then I was working in a UPS 4 hours overnight, the night shift. So I did the very thing that I said I wouldn't do. From there, I decided, you know what? I remembered I said I wasn't going to work hard. So what next step did I take? I joined the Air Force. I didn't go to be an entrepreneur. I joined the Air Force and I was going to make that a career. And this is important for everybody listening because you always have goals and plans and ideas and dreams, but life changes. I was going to go to OTS, officer training school, become an officer, do 20, 25 years, and then retire. However, at about 2 years, 6 months in, I was medically retired. And that changed the trajectory of my life once again. And from there, since the job, I was a signals intel analyst, so I had a clearance. I was able to come to Maryland and work in the cleared environment and gov contracting work. And I've done that since before becoming a full-fledged entrepreneur. So I went immediately into GovCon, started at the bottom, this local PC support, material management, working hard yet again. And that was 2009. Around 2014, I realized that I was making a great salary, but that wasn't going to create generational wealth, nor could I pass that job down to my kids. So I got into real estate in 2014. And between 2014 and about 2016, a little bit before, about 18 months, I launched a property management company and grew it to 1.2 million, about 250 units managed. And throughout that phase, I began to grow that business, property management, contracting, renovations, flips. I ran the gamut in the real estate world. And with that, I took my eyes off the ball, got really stressed out, started to lose a lot of money. And that's what they don't tell you. If you grow too fast without systems and processes and things like that, you begin to implode. So around 2019, I shut that business down. I didn't sell it. I didn't have anybody to tell me I could sell it until after the fact. And that's one that got away where I could have exited properly and took away a couple of $1 million. But I just closed it. And that led me 2019 to today of consulting, working with business owners every day, giving them stories and how to actually grow, scale the business. It led me into the capital space because while I didn't think about raising capital from the sense that I do now, I was raising capital from investors to flip properties, to grow the business, to deploy it, marketing, hiring, all those great things. And so that puts me in the space today of working with business owners every day and teaching them how to raise capital, how do you deploy it properly in the business, and then how do you scale properly in the right way and keeping your exit options open.
That is quite a journey. I'm just thinking as you're speaking, I grew up almost the same way. And I grew up with a single mom, and we were not dirt poor, but we were living paycheck to paycheck. And I saw how hard she worked, and she worked for the government. And I saw we weren't going to get anywhere. So when I first started college, I then went to the Air Force. I spent 9 years in the Air Force, came out as a master sergeant, and that began my journey. When I was working for myself, I said, okay, let me start a design studio. Then my brothers and I got a pizzeria and restaurants and things like that. We sold all that and we went to corporate. And then that was all in New York. When we moved down to Georgia, I said, enough with that. Everything's now going to be for me. So I started working for a law firm, and I said, no, let me do this for myself. And about 4 years, 5 years, I started my own consulting, professional speaking, and everything else. So I understand your journey, how hard it must have been to walk away from the business, but I see that you've taken everything you've learned, put it into what you're doing, and you're making it grow. So that I think is kudos, and it takes a lot of resilience for you because you saw everything you did wrong. You went to the school of hard knocks. That's I say it all the time. I
Yeah.
went to the school of hard knocks. I learned what not to do, and it helps me on my journey. So I applaud you for that. Let me ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
Most founders network hoping to meet investors. What's the mindset shift that turns networking from hunting capital into attracting it?
It has to be a mindset of adding value. And Jim Rohn used to always talk about if you want to get something, you got to give someone else something. So if I want to have money, I need to make sure that I'm giving enough value in another way to another person. That way they see that it's worth them investing in. And a lot of times, what I see when business owners network is they're networking from scarcity. They're networking from, I need to pay this next bill. They're networking from the fear of they won't be able to continue if I don't close this deal. So it's always a networking from a lack mindset versus from an abundance mindset. And so they're not going in a room to add value. They're not going in a room to deliver something. They're going in a room to extract. And investors and everybody else around them can feel that. You can feel when someone's desperate, the desperation. It's like, I got to get this done. And it causes them to over talk, meaning I got to tell you I just met you, Michael. I got to tell you my whole life story in this 3 minutes so I can hope you see something in me. And it's not it. You got to go in being confident in what you have, networking to add value, just to share your experience, your expertise, your journey. And then people will pick up and believe in that story. Another thing that I notice is people don't know how to concisely tell what they do, who they are, and how they make impact fast enough. They got to tell a story and then you leave confused. I don't know if I support this person. I have no clue what they were talking about. So that's a part where a business owner really needs to, they say you need to know how to sell. I recently saw another podcast that says you also need to know how to communicate and speak. And all entrepreneurs, business owners should take speaking lessons and courses so they know the right words to say how to approach a situation, and how to deliver enough value and impact without dragging a conversation down.
And you're absolutely right. You hit on so many points that are so true that I can't begin to comment on them because what I teach, what I help business professionals with is exactly what you just said. And once they figure out what they're going to say, everybody talks about their 30-second elevator pitch, and everybody knows that it's your 30-second elevator pitch. So when I go through and I teach them, say, look, let's hone in on that 30-second elevator pitch. Okay, great. Okay, we have it down. Isn't that great? Yeah. Now let's bring it down to 10 seconds. And they're like,
Mhm.
it flips them out. What are you talking about? We work on it, we bring it down to 10 seconds. So I said, okay, you got it down to 10 seconds. That's great. Now throw it out because now you can focus in on what you can talk about and you be yourself. I don't want to say be authentic because that word gets thrown around like it's like every day, but you
Yeah.
have to be yourself and just talk about it. But the most important thing that you have to do is listen. Listen to the other person. And I can sit here and talk to you all day about that, but I'm not going to because it's for you. Okay, you talk about being an investor ready operator instead of just an entrepreneur. What does that look like in a first conversation?
Yeah, an investor ready operator. And it's also, you can consider it being an exitable business or fundable, bankable business. It's all the same premise. You have to be thinking and building with the end in mind, with the exit. Most business owners don't ever think about the exit. The only thing they think about is getting the next check. I want to take an extra vacation. I want to be on my own and I don't work for anybody else. What does that look like 20 years from now? And when you don't have that, because what is an investor looking for? They're looking for how are they going to get their return on the money that you're seeking from them. And it's not just at the base level of the return. We have to think a little bit deeper. How do they get the return? By the impact that the business makes through sales. And so if you can figure out how do I create a business that isn't dependent on me, that has systems and processes, that has a marketing engine, that has a sales system, that has a delivery mechanism, and that has a customer success feedback loop, those are all the components of a business. And when you can talk about that in a succinct way, that is what triggers an investor to say, okay, they have it going together. This is an investable business. It's not investable when it's just, oh, I'm going to change the world. How? I didn't get that far yet. I'm going to make impact of millions of people. How? By doing X, Y, and Z. But I don't have any of the infrastructure because I don't like numbers. And so we have to move from just the passion about what we think we want to do in the business to actually starting to put systems and processes in place to do those things and bring them to fruition. Investors are looking for track record. They're looking for momentum. They're looking for, have you done this before in a previous business or underneath a corporate umbrella or in the military? Have you done what you said that you're going to do with my money today? And that creates an investable business at the end of the day. I think, and I understand the place for pitch competitions. However, I think pitch competitions have done a disservice to small businesses because they give you this slide deck basis and say, just follow the deck. No business follows the deck. It doesn't happen in the real world. And what I've noticed is out of working with thousands of small businesses, they all follow this deck. But if you take the deck away, I'll give you a quick story, Michael. I was at an
Sure.
entrepreneur accelerator at one of the universities. I won't call the university out. And they had the MBA students paired with businesses to help them build, and they put the pitch. The PowerPoint presentation, for whatever reason, went out. The screen went out. They could not continue the pitch because they couldn't look back and read it off the slides. And I have sat in many pitch competitions where they're literally just going slide by slide. They're not telling the story. that you don't hear how they're going to actually execute it. It's just curated bullet points. And I tell every business the same thing. You are supposed to know your business so well that you don't need the slide. The slides are just there for us not to just go. We're just following you. But if you can't talk about your business in depth without a slide deck, you're not going to be investable. An investor's not going to give you money because you don't know your own business. And so when I think about what makes the conversation change, it's just how you show up and how you communicate what you're doing and how you can talk through. My very first investor, I used to talk about what I would do, what the plan was in real estate. And he asked me, why aren't you doing it? And I said, I don't have the money. And he asked me, if you had the money, what would you do? It wasn't an elevator pitch. It wasn't a pitch deck. It was a systematic approach to this is how I would flip the first house. Here's the resources that I have. Here's the research that I've done. And he gave me a check for $150,000 on the spot. That's an investable business.
That's an investable business. There are people that they know their business. They know the sales cycle. They know all about it, but they don't know how to communicate it to either investors or to clients or somebody else. And that's really the important part. That's what I meant by when we took the 30-second elevator speech and put it down to nothing, because you need to convey your passion without your passion. You have to convey it through a system and everything else to make the other person say, you know something, you're absolutely right. Here's the check.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So how does structure in your business or systems, reporting, clarity change the way people perceive you in networking environments?
It shows that it's real. It shows that you've done some level of research and that you know what you're talking about. Many business owners come to me and they tell me my marketing isn't working. And I just ask a simple question, what's not working? And they can't tell me. They have no clue. They don't, I ran paid ads and they didn't work. Okay, what didn't work? Of course you didn't make any money, but why? Was it the creative? Was it the headline? Was it video versus static? Was it the specific demographics, the keywords that you used? Or did it drop off at the funnel? Was it your website? Or did it drop off at the cart or the book a call? They can't tell you their KPIs, key performance indicators. That, if you know that, that shows up differently in the space because that's what investors are looking for. How are you going to get this return? I know if I do X, Y, and Z, it's going to return this. If I know I drop 40,000 into a marketing budget that I'm asking you for, I'm going to get a 4x return. And here's why, because my numbers say that I'm getting this and this based on the metrics that I track. And so knowing the numbers in the business creates an atmosphere of this person knows what they're doing. They're actually able to track and measure the data, and they're able to give me some sort of reporting. So it's not just in the air and fluff. And that's what we got to get away from. We love to talk about the possibilities, but have you measured what you've done in the past on the way to reaching that possibility? Yes, I won't even say everybody wants to be $1 billion company because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. That's not even in their mind. But if you do want to be $1 billion company, how are you going to get there? And how are you going to track every part of that business to know what's working and what's not working? How are you going to make efficient what's effective? A lot of people talk about efficiency, especially in the age of AI. You got to be effective first. What you're doing has to work first. I had a friend of mine reach out to me recently about Zapier. Have you ever used Zapier? I'm like, man, I was using Zapier 5, 10 years ago when they came out. And he was like, I'm looking to do these things with Zapier. I said, have you mapped this out yet on paper? Before you automate something, you got to put it on paper. So from a reporting, a KPI, a data perspective, you have to know those numbers before you start dropping things. Now, if you're a startup and you brand new, of course, you don't have the previous data. Now you start testing. Your first year or two is optimization. of what you're trying to do. This is why most businesses stay in the red for the first 3 to 5 years, because you're optimizing that business. You're putting money in, not, and it's not that it's not working, you're figuring out what's working. Then you go into the black and become profitable. But too many businesses want to drop some money in and be profitable in 30 days, but you don't know, you don't have the track record. You can't take, and even if you did it in corporate for 30 years, you can't take what your company did and translate it to your business, because there are many different components that are different, and you just have to figure that out for yourself.
Very good. Very good. And again, you hit on so many points that were so real and so accurate that I don't want to even discuss it because everything you said was so on point. In investor conversations, where do founders unintentionally lose credibility without even realizing it?
Big picture, big dreams, big idea. I'm going to cure cancer. That's a very novel thing that we should be working towards, and a lot of businesses are working towards doing that. But how? Or this is the one that gets me. Nobody else is doing it in the world. I'm the first. Uh, oh, I don't know about that. You being the first today, it's a lot of people that you just don't know. And that's the issue. You don't know that somebody else is doing it. They don't know that you're doing it. And the end clients don't know that you're doing it, or the end user, the end customer. And so that's another thing. Or they underestimate the amount of money that it takes. I just need 100,000. I had an investor tell me that before. I went to him and I think, what did I ask for? I think I asked for 120 grand, something like, because it was for 3 months of what I've tracked. And he said, no. And I said, I always ask for feedback. What could I have done better in the presentation, the conversation that would have made you say yes? He said, no, the presentation was flawless. I believe in what you're doing. You didn't ask me for enough money. Number one, if I give you 120 grand, that's going to get you through 3, 6 months, and you'll be right back asking me for more money. He told me to take my operating expenses that I can estimate for 3 years and ask for that. Red flags for business owners that I see when they're just asking for a number, but they haven't put that number, they don't know how to deploy it. And so when you start to ask, how are you going to deploy the capital? They've never even thought about that. Not knowing that when you're raising capital, you have to use the legal exemptions to raise it, and you have to detail your use of proceeds. And so that's a red flag. When I talk to owners who are raising, I'm like, okay, what regulation are you using to raise? No clue. Oh, so you're just taking people's money and you're not even legal. And so those are the things that I think about. Too big of an idea. They're the only one that ever, I'm the brand new, you never heard of before. I'm the only one that's doing it. They don't know how to deploy the capital or where it's going. They just want the money. And then they're not using a legal exemption to do. They're just going around asking for money, which you can't do.
Okay. Okay. What's the difference between pitching and positioning in a network setting?
I feel like pitching is making that direct ask, but I also feel like it comes from that spirit of desperation. You
Right.
have to pitch it right now because you need it. Positioning is going into a situation and showing and adding value to a room. But from a psychological perspective, you are pitching, you are selling, but that's not the push and that's not the feel. It's wow, this person's just talking about what they're doing, how they add value, and how it connects, and what it creates, what the return is on that. That's positioning. That really person knows what they're talking about. I want to learn more. I want to follow up with them. I've noticed people, and I've started to do this as well, they go into a room and they don't pitch anything. They're just talking. And you'll start to see more people gravitate around that conversation. That's a person who's positioning. They're selling. They're always selling, but they're not selling from a spirit of desperation. They don't necessarily need it, but it's always great to have.
That falls along the lines of Whenever I help somebody, teach somebody, show somebody about networking events, networking meetings, I tell them to go in with a servant's heart. I tell them to go in there and just see what you can do for somebody else. Because once you're talking, you forget all about business, right? Because that will in turn come back to you. But you have to first add value. You have to see what you can do for somebody else. And I have a system in place, and if you follow the system, but I always have a certain point in time where I do everything. I have something called form, FORM, and I utilize that. And they turn around. I say, look, you know something, Tyrus, I like you. I like how you do business. How can I make you more successful? How can I be a good referral source for you? And if I did my job correctly, you'll say, Michael, I don't know what the hell you do yet, and you're already trying to make me more successful? Yes. And that's the beginning of the road that you're going to take. So it's very important that you bring value, as you said in the beginning of this podcast, to the relationship without you even thinking of how they can help you. All
100%.
right. So you emphasize systems that create instant credibility. What specific elements should every founder have ready before stepping into a capital conversation?
That's a great question. And before I answer it fully, my partner always says, nobody cares about your widget, your gadget, any of that. And most founders go in talking about their widget, their gadget, what it'll do. I was just reviewing a pitch deck for someone, and it was a medical breakthrough that they found with DNA and genomes and things like that. And the whole pitch deck was about that. I'm like, this is written toward scientists, not investors. An investor is going to read this and not understand any of it. So nobody cares about that. When you think about the system, you think about delivery. How do I take this thing that I'm telling you is great and get it to market? And then how do I know that it's working through feedback? And so to be prepared when you're talking to an investor is, I know you want your money back. Here's exactly how we're going to do it. And and keep it simple. And this is another thing that business owners and most people do. We overcomplicate things. The mechanics of business is simple. You create a product or service, you market it, you sell it, you deliver it, and then you follow up to see if it either eased the pain or added value or whatever the end result is. And then you iterate over it. That's it. That's all you have to explain. That's a pitch deck. I am doing X, Y, and Z. These are the steps that I take. Here's the impact that it's going to make. Here's how you get your return on your investment based on that. Do you need more details? And if you can convey just that simple information very clearly, most investors don't need more details because they don't care about how you're going to execute it. They just want to know that you can execute it and that you have a plan to execute it. And that's what most business owners lack. They don't know how to do marketing. And they say that. Don't say that. I'm going to bring in the right experts needed to market this effectively. Oh, I'm not a great salesperson. Oh, how are you ever going to make money? I'm going to hire the right salespeople. And when you take and go from operator thinking to ownership thinking and investor thinking, if more businesses thought like investors, they would do much better. They're too busy thinking about this being my baby. I got to nurture it versus thinking that this is an asset because that's what the investors, this is an asset. This is a part of the portfolio. So if an owner flipped that mindset from being an operator in the day to day to being an investor, and this is an asset, a part of their portfolio, then they would know exactly what an investor is looking for, and they can show up to a conversation just sharing those things.
That was such good advice. I can't begin to tell you because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about all the businesses that I've come in contact with that I'm helping the owners and everything else. Keep it simple, stupid. kiss method. That's all you have to
Mhm.
they because they're so passionate about it. It's their baby, and they want to explain to you every little detail because they need to show you how invested you are in your product. When in turn, the investors really don't want to hear that. They just want to hear how they're going to get the money back.
Exactly.
Really very simple. It's a very simple, but you said it very well. All right, let's bring this podcast full circle. If someone wants to turn their networking into consistent deal flow within the next year, what's what one habit would make the biggest difference?
Mindset training. They should be reading, listening to podcasts, watching to train their mind to be able to enter an environment and add massive value. That's the habit they should do. Every single day, figure out a way to continue growing and increasing, because with that comes all the other sub layers of I'm sharper. I know how to communicate better. I'm understanding human psychology and behavior better. I know how to get what I want by giving other people what they want. And I'm knowing how to show up in the room, not just being in the room. Most people are just happy with getting in the room. Why are you in that room? What is the purpose of you being there? And if you can just continue to train your mind, constant training, all high performing teams, if we study across different industries, they hyper focus and they train. So when they show up in the environment, they're ready to go. They're not training on the job.
Outstanding. It's outstanding. Tyrus, you are such a good guest because you fill us with so much information that listen, how would somebody get hold of you if they wanted to be mentored by you, wanted to buy your services or products, or just call you to say hi? How would they get hold of you?
Yeah, we have two websites, legacywealthcapitalgroup.com and capitalraisingacademy.com. Those are the entry points to everything that we do. And we keep it simple. We want you to go to the site, figure out where you belong in our ecosystem. It's laid out for you to just review and browse. And when you figure out where you belong in our ecosystem, then you make the next step. And that'll either be from the Capital Raising Academy side, or that'll be from Legacy Wealth Capital Group advisory side as a whole. And we go from there.
Outstanding. Very good. This conversation is a reminder that high level networking isn't about chasing capital. It's about becoming the kind of operator capital wants to back. When your structure is clear, your systems are tight, your communication reflects discipline, people take you seriously, and serious people create serious opportunities. Here's your action step. Before your next big conversation, ask yourself, do I sound like someone asking for money or someone prepared to manage it? If you got value from today's episode, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to Networking Unleashed, building profitable connections, so you keep getting practical insight on networking and communication at every level. From first introductions to serious deal flow, and share this episode with a founder who's ready to elevate how they showed up. If you want to strengthen your positioning, sharpen your communication, or build relationships that open real financial doors, visit michaelaforman.com to learn how I work with professionals, teams, and organizations. So until next time, raise your standard, build your credibility, and turn connections into capital. Tyrus, I want to thank you again for coming on. You were great.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, hold on, folks. Don't go anywhere. Let's hear from our sponsors. David Neal, co founder, Revved Up Kids. Revved Up Kids is on a mission to protect children and teens from sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. They provide prevention training programs for children, teens, and adults. To learn more, go to revvedupkids.org. Henry Kaplan, Century 21. When it comes to making the biggest financial decision of your life, leave it in the hands of a proven professional, Henry Kaplan. Henry is a global real estate agent with Century 21, celebrating his 41st year in business. No matter where you're moving, Henry has the right connections for you. You can contact Henry at 561-427-4888. A wrap, folks. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing such incredible insights today. And of course, a big shout out to you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in and spending your time with us. If you're interested in my digital courses, being coached, or having me come and talk to your company, just go to Michael and fill out the request form. Remember, networking isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. So take what you've learned today, get out there, and make some meaningful connections. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little networking inspiration. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, or my website, forman.com/podcasts.